We're live.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody watching live on LinkedIn. We've got our next ConeX supplier session. For those of you watching along live that don't know what ConeX is, we are essentially a community of UK manufacturing businesses, helping, supporting, collaborating on projects together, and better showcasing what UK manufacturing and design is up to, essentially. So we host these sessions to allow members of our community to chat, share knowledge, support one another, and generally just have an open discussion around what some of our members are up to. So you'll be able to comment along live as we go, and make sure we'll ask the panel the questions as they pop up on our end. So I'll quickly do a quick round the room introductions, if we don't mind, and then we'll hand over to Neil, who is our host for the day, who's going to be showing some quite exciting stuff. So we met probably about a year ago, maybe a bit more now, didn't we, Neil? And yeah, I've been looking forward to this one ever since. So I will start with Adam, who is the man behind the live technology, everything. I'll let him explain yours.
I think most people know me. So yeah, Adam Payne, Factory IQ, TCM UK, New Way Growth, Metaverse events, all manner of stuff. So yeah, that's me. Good to meet you all.
Brilliant. Tolu.
Hi everyone. Hello, I'm part of ConeX. We work together on what we're building. Amazing stuff that we're doing. I love you. Big up, Tom.
And Chris, who are you?
Hi, Chris Hawkin from Couth Design and also Boost Innovations. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, well that's the introduction. So I'll hand over straight over to Neil. Obviously, feel free to introduce yourself. What you do within Render, and I'll leave it to you. And obviously, if anyone wants to jump in with any questions, as I say, any comments of anyone watching live, I can see Lee Howarth is already watching. Feel free to jump in and say hi. So over to you, Neil.
Lovely, thank you, Sam. So hopefully everybody can see and hear me. Please let me know if not. Yeah, so as Sam mentioned earlier, Render a part of ConeX, been a member for around a year now. My name is Neil Wharton and I'm the sales director for Render. I'll give a little bit of information on who Render are via some slides, but don't worry, it's not death by PowerPoint. It's just one or two covering who we are, what we do, clients. I appreciate it's a short session this morning, so I've tried to hone in on one of the key areas of using XR software. So effectively, Render are an XR provider. We provide software in the XR space, so virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and immersive tech. Interesting, very pretty stuff, but really I'm focusing on one specific area for the purpose of today, which is how to use that to collaborate. So using that on design data, using that on photoreal data to collaborate worldwide, utilizing augmented reality really is the purpose of today's discussion around one of our apps. And then please feel free, anybody from the panel or anybody watching from home, please feel free to ask me any questions during. We'll keep it quite fluid, so if anybody has any comments or questions, please let me know and I can stop and address those as we go. So if you could share my screen, Adam, I'll share the first slide. So hopefully that's on there. Please let me know if people are not seeing a slide, but at the moment I'll assume you are until I'm told otherwise. So as I mentioned, Render are a company who provide XR software, and that really means we provide virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality applications, which are bespoke to end user requirements or commercial off-the-shelf applications. So we have a mixture of the two. And just to really give a bit of information about who we are, I've put up a client list on the right, just some select clients to cover the sort of industries we work in. But really, it's anybody who provides a product or a service to industry, predominantly engineering and manufacturing. We provide a solution to explain your product, or explain your service, or immerse your audience into that product. So we do things around the world of VR and AR applications for training, VR and AR applications for marketing and sales. So showing your product photo real to somebody in China that you're trying to sell to. If you're a UK-based company, you can put it photo real in the room with them full scale and have it with kinematic information and motion so they can interact with the product without having to ship it over there effectively. In addition to that, we do things around the web. So we have web tools where you can have an object that you can interact with in real-time 3D on the website. And also, more recently, we've released our Web AR application, which you can have your objects on your website, but also a QR code in the corner. So if you hold up any mobile phone that's within the last sort of 4 or 5 years, which is pretty much most of them, you can see the object in the room with you. And again, that's a rendered object. So using AR, you can put a photoreal object of your product in the room with you on the desk scaled or next to you to scale if you'd rather. So we do things around the web. Interaction, so really that covers a lot of what we're talking about today. Interactive and AR really is the topic of today. So that's around putting data in a way that you can engage with it, so your audience can engage with it. So product catalogs, for example, you can put your products photoreal into a catalog, but more so you can utilize AR, you can utilize immersive touch screens to have that 3D object in front of you. And mentioned briefly on the right-hand side, touchscreens. We see a lot of that for events. So clients who provide services or products that are large and difficult to explain. Touchscreens are a great way to give somebody the ability to go down a story. So you can touch the screen and effectively envelop yourself into somebody else's world and put your products in the environment they would naturally sit in. So they're the areas that Render touch on. But I appreciate we've only got a half an hour session today, so I won't touch on all of these. The area I'm going to focus on and give a brief demonstration on is around how you can utilize these new XR technologies to collaborate on designs in a way that you couldn't previously, really. So effectively, you're putting these products that you've created into the world where somebody else can go in and access them, interact with them, and see them in augmented reality in the room with them. But at no time are they stealing your IP. At no time are they taking your IP and having it for themselves, because it is effectively a visualization of your product that they are interacting with. So they don't take your product away. It's not the same as sending and receiving the item. It's secure in that you're hosting the session and you know what they're interacting with. What I'll show in a moment is Render's application for this, which is called the Render app. And just to give a bit of information before I show it, we appreciate that when you're using augmented reality and virtual reality, the product itself is only half the story. So you have to be able to give your clients or your customers more information about what they're seeing to differentiate you from other people, to say why the product you're looking at might be very pretty, but in actual fact, it's also very useful and very cost effective and market leading. So what we've also done is married worlds. So you've got visualization. So you've got the 3D object, CAD object, or photoreal rendered object. And you've also got metadata around that. And that's true in virtual reality and augmented reality, and also the desktop app that I'll show in a moment's time. So you can see here, we've got some hotspots on the photo on the left, the image on the left-hand side. There's some plus signs, which are hotspots. And you can drill down into understanding why that object you're looking at might be better, might have more metadata coming out of databases to give you more information. And the example we've given there is you've got the plane, and you can click on the fuselage to look inside the plane, or you can click on the engine there to see information about the engine. And you can see some hyperlinks in the text description that you can then take out to other websites. Now, that's the desktop viewer, but obviously one of the key benefits is seeing it in context. So seeing how large, in the real world these objects are, or really just interacting with them in a new way to make it more immersive. So you can see the image on the left-hand side is placing the plane on what we call desktop mode. So effectively you are placing it on tabletop mode, where you can scale that object and interact with it and peel back layers and see more information in the world with you. And the image on the right-hand side is throwing just the engine. We've drilled down into the engine, just the engine in isolation, and we've thrown the engine in the room with us so that we can still scale that if it's too large, but we can actually put our heads inside the engine, turn off the skin, apply motion if it's got motion attached to it, and interact with that in our world to see what it would look like in context. So I won't bore anyone else with any more slides other than this one, just to effectively go through what I've mentioned there, and then I'll get on to show a little bit about the product itself and really the wider application within the XR world and collaboration. You import your 3D assets. Your 3D assets can be CAD or can be photoreal, but really your 3D assets aren't necessarily that beneficial without assigning content to that. So you assign the content that's linked to your 3D assets around what you would like to do with your data. If it's for clients, you might want it to be more salesy and talk about benefits and features. If it's to your suppliers, you might use it for a maintenance review, and therefore you're pulling maintenance information from your SAP system or ERP system. If it's for a marketing event, you might have many attendees and you want to deliver information that's short and sharp to get to the point. You can build custom libraries, therefore, for the audience you're talking to. So you build custom libraries for the audience that's in front of you and you're talking to on your product. Share and collaborate is the key, and I'll show you in a moment what that really means. And across different devices. So in a moment, I'm going to show you the desktop app. If you are a desktop user, you can do everything that you are about to see. If you're using an iPad or an Android tablet, let's say, you can also do everything you're about to see. You could join the meeting, you could interact with the object, but you have the added bonus of being able to use AR if you're using, let's say, an iPad. You have the AR button and you can place it in the room with you. You could also use this in virtual reality. So you could have the content in virtual reality, so you're fully immersed, and put it inside one of the worlds that it would naturally sit in. So for example, in the past, we've put that plane on a runway. And in fact, we've layered it. So we've had two planes. One of them is waiting and the other one is on the runway currently. And you're interacting with that to carry out a training or maintenance task. So desktop, augmented reality or virtual reality across different devices is key, really. So what I'll do now is I'll show you the application itself. And in fact, I'll load the plane itself as well on the basis that we are talking about the plane. So hopefully what you can see in front of you now is an application. It's our render app. And you can see my name at the bottom. I've turned my camera off because you can see my camera during the meeting we're currently having. But what you would do if you weren't having this meeting to show this is you would have your camera and you would have your audio coming through this application itself. So effectively think of a Teams or a Skype or a Zoom, but in the world where your product plays center stage. So your product is at the very heart of the conversation. If I had 5 people in this meeting, you would see my face, my audio would come through, and next to me would be the other 4 participants with their video and audio. If I had 100 people, you could have this as a scrollable option. But what we see more often is people want to allocate hosts. So there might be 4 hosts that are shown, and everybody that's an attendee isn't shown on this list at the bottom, so that you can have unlimited people within a meeting, and you can use this for broadcasts. You could use this for webinars, for example. So what you're looking at now is a desktop application with data at the heart of it. So it happens to be an aeroplane, but it could be anything at all, really. I use the aeroplane because it's quite a nice object to show that you can get a lot of data into this and it's seamless. So I appreciate this is over the internet, so there might be some lag. But if you were in the room with me, there would not be lag because you're only sending coordinate information. So it's instant. When I rotate, you see it rotate. When I select an element and isolate it, you see it isolated in real time. So I can isolate parts of this and interrogate this part further, zoom around, look inside it. I can show all the objects. And effectively what we've got on the left-hand side is a few options here. So AR lock, as I mentioned earlier, if somebody were to join this meeting using a device that allows AR, so an iPad, which I mentioned earlier, AR lock would be available to you, and you can place this engine in the room with you, scaled to your tabletop if you prefer. Host privileges, so I can pass host privileges to anybody who joins this meeting, which is very useful if you have 5 hosts to a webinar and 100 attendees. You can pass host privileges to those 5 people and they can interact and take on the story and present their element to it. It's also very useful for sales meetings. Your clients can therefore interact with your product while at no time taking it away with them. They can interact with it, they can turn bits on, they can interrogate it by being the host of the meeting, and you can take that privilege back at any time. I've already turned mic and video off because we're using a different application for mic and video. And I can select assets here as well. So if I select another asset, let's select a satellite. then the asset library I have available to me is dependent on my level of access. So if I am administrator, I might have access to all of the asset libraries, both CAD coming from a PLM system, but also photoreal assets held as FBX or Unity files. If I am somebody who doesn't have those privileges, I might have access to specific buckets of data, specific projects of data, for example. But you can see here that we've got an object in this world, which is it's actually a satellite we did for a project. And again, it's furnished with information on how to utilize that satellite. So you can embed here video information, you can embed here text information, you could have tabular information, image information, and all of that can be called from a subsequent database. So a database linked in some way to the data that you're pulling, or it could be held inside the CAD data as, let's say, user-defined attributes or standard attributes. You can pull that out. What we also have the ability to do is, when you end the call, you have the ability to automatically send somebody a link to come back and interact with this data. So if you wanted to, you could host a webinar where everybody was assessing this data and looking at your webinar and you were presenting to them. But if you wanted a further engagement with those people, you could automatically have it that they are sent a link to the to this data afterwards, and they enter in something we call kiosk mode, which is really all they can do is interact with this object. They can't set up meetings. They can't invite other people in to see your data. They can just log in with the credentials you give them and see the information that they were just presented as a sort of final check after the event, effectively. So this is an application. We are also investigating having this as a web app. So you would see the same information, but it would be via the website. We're investigating having this as a hosted service at the moment. In fact, the work's going on now to have it as a hosted service. So we could offer the hosting, or you could host this locally if there were security issues. So however you wanted to use XR to collaborate and share your products with clients, customers, and others, that is available to you effectively. So it's using XR, it's using augmented reality to show your products worldwide without having to ship them, and with the added security that you're not giving your products to anybody for them to assess and look at. You are maintaining your IP at all times. From my side, that was everything I wanted to present. So I'll throw the floor open to both the panel and people watching at home. If anybody has any comments or questions, or if there's anything that perhaps I covered a bit too quickly, please feel free to let me know, and I'll be happy to address that.
Neil,
I'm sure everyone has questions. So, Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, no, there's been some questions. So first one, well, a lot of them from Christopher Devane. How does it connect to Katia? Is it parametric? Is there a monthly license, or is it a lifetime, sort of like an all-time buy? I'm going to pronounce this VRED.
Yeah, it's pronounced VRED. Yeah, that's all it was. Yeah, so I'll try if I can remember your questions in order, but let me know if I'm not. So the first one was about Katia. Good question. Yeah, so at the moment, you have the option to read design data in. So if somebody wanted to add a read leg, you could read your Katia data in. We have CAD data in the application. The reason I don't use that for a session like this really is, as engineers will know, the design data is very useful to an engineer, but it's possibly not as visually appealing as a rendered plane. So I use the rendered plane and rendered satellite because it's possibly more visually appealing. But I appreciate we've got clients, we've got people that we are talking to, and they predominantly want this for tasks that will involve at some point design data. So yes, you can read your Katia data into the application and interact with that. Okay.
Adding on that, Neil, just because this is something that's me coming out of it. So I remember a long time ago being at a university looking at this sort of like reality, and we were looking at a car in the virtual reality, and you could explode the car up to really down to its bill of materials in a virtual world. And is that sort of, can you actually do so, taking up from a design point of view of what we're saying around Katia, is you've got this 3D rendered. Can you actually sort of like explode it out and then go down into the finite part and then actually expand it out to look at the technical drawings if needed?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So today it doesn't have the explode function within it, but we've looked at it and it's feasible. But what we could do is read that explode capability. So you possibly know yourself, but some systems can effectively hold that information. So to explode and to maintain that view, I'm thinking of something like ConeX or NX JT to go, for example. You can read a JT file that's pre-exploded. So yeah, you could read that information pre-exploded and drill down. You could turn off the bits that weren't relevant, so you can drill down into an assembly. You could turn off all of the elements and really go down into the nitty-gritty of the object you're interested in by isolating that part of the assembly. But yes, yeah, so you can pull apart the assembly in that way. Yeah.
Brilliant. I didn't mean to pull you off track there, by the way.
Not at all. No, absolutely. One of the things you also asked about was parametric information.
Yeah.
It won't read parametric information in the way of feature in history. So it wouldn't read the feature in history of the object, mainly because most CAD reads stay clear of that really in modern day, just because that's really your IP is how you created it, its history of its design and the features you used in order to create it. So it doesn't maintain feature in history, but it can bring through assembly structure. So you can have the assembly tree, you can have the information on materials and colors and layers and information like that, but not the parametric from a feature in history viewpoint. Just the BREP exact geometry, but not the feature in history information.
Superb. There was another one about monthly license and all-time buy, and that one, and then the comparison.
Yeah. Sorry, you're absolutely right. So at the moment, it's a monthly or annual license cost is how we normally sell this. It's not to say we wouldn't consider selling it as a outright purchase, but at the moment, the majority of the people that use this prefer the monthly or annual subscription model. So both are available, but at the moment, it's monthly or annual subscription.
Super.
And the VRED side of things, so it's a very good question, because obviously if you've got VRED, you've got the engine that renders the data. So you've spent some money to create the rendering engine, and you've got VRED there that you're probably an avid user of. The VRED itself will allow you to bake in shadows, bake in materials, and therefore you can actually export a rendered object. I won't say it would be photoreal like you would see it in VRED, but it would certainly be a step towards that. So it would be more than CAD. It would have shadows baked in, it would have materials baked in, and we could read that information. Our system can read that information in. So you have a more than a halfway house, but not necessarily the photoreal object you see in VRED, but you will have some of the materials and some of the lighting information baked into the object itself.
Super.
Nice. Can I jump in? I know Chris is eager to jump in. I'm going to quickly steal his limelight for a couple of quick questions, and then I'll let Chris and Tolly jump in. I know you mentioned the sharing info after the event. So once you've held a webinar or a meeting or whatever it is, and then those attendees can then go in and view the file afterwards. Mm-hmm. Can you share it beforehand? So if you're in a kind of design team, can you send them the file in this link? They can go and have a look and almost prep and then join the meeting and learn more about it. Does it work that way as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's certainly an option. If it's something that you're going to use often with the design team, you can actually allocate them a login themselves and allocate them the file you want them to see. So if you wanted to show them 3 files, for example, when they logged in, they would access those 3 files that you wanted them to see over the next 3 weeks, for example. So yeah, they could absolutely log in, and you could give them access. You can give them a link, and they would be able to log into that before your meeting with them, and then you could use the application itself to run that meeting.
Perfect. And then I know, obviously, as I said, we spoke about this over a year ago, and initially I was thinking individuals with kind of design consultancy businesses to share with clients. I was thinking much larger teams to get, a series of seats across their entire organization, potentially marketing teams to use it as product development sources and things like that. Where in the last year or so since we've been in discussions, where is, the majority of your client base sitting at the moment where is this being used mainly?
I'd say the majority use it for, and I'm sure that it might be an even split really, but I'm going to say marketing and sales purposes seems to be a very large part of it. So digital marketing, allowing you to show your assets. I'll give an example. There's a client of ours that are in the marine sector, and their object is quite a large object. It's quite a large object that sits on top of water, and it's quite difficult to explain at shows and events. So they have a few iPads that their clients can interact with, the object preloaded, and the ability for you to throw that into the event space with you. So still photo real, so you can see the object as if it was actually there. You can put it in the environment even, so the app could have the environment of water or wherever your object should reside. So yeah, we see heavily in the sales and marketing space, and potentially just because of on the back of COVID, a lot more people are attending events now, but we're seeing a lot of it used for events, used to describe your products at events and increase engagement. So one of our clients is looking at how much longer people are spending at events or at their stand at events, based on utilizing technology like this, utilizing large touch screens with this application running, utilizing iPads. And they're seeing that a lot more time is spent at their stand interacting with their object and talking to them about their object than historically when they used to use brochures and they had some effectively flyers that they handed out and some free gifts. Everybody likes a free gift, but I think it tells you more if you can interact with the product that's not actually physically there. So events seems to be a big area for us at the moment, explaining products at events.
Okay, nice. Perfect. Well, I'll shut up and I'll let Chris jump in.
So I just wanted to ask a bit more about the parametric element. So I think possibly leading on from what other Chris was sort of asking, if you presumably this piece of software that is sort of a staging environment, so the file is loaded into it and then it's used as a presentation tool, does it bear any relationship or any parametric link back to the host file? So if, for example, the CAD file was modified for updates and changes, would that then propagate through?
Not as standard, but there is a way to do it. So so it's not a two-way communication either, because it makes sense for it to not be really. You don't want your design data updated from a result of some people playing around inside this application. So so it would never go that way. But if the original design information was updated, you as standard, no. But what is interesting is if that client uses something like a process tool like PLM. So if they use PLM, if they used Team Center or 3D Experience or something like that, that has the ability to trigger change. So it manages change, it can trigger changes. So if you changed it to every time something had a revision change, for example, the PLM systems themselves can trigger a process. So send out an external process. And the invocation of getting data into this app can be triggered by an external process as well. So you could automate putting data through to a format the app can see every time there's a change, so that effectively when somebody opens the app next time, the data that they're going to have available to them is the new version of that data.
And sort of leading on more from my perspective, so I've always been self-employed, small design consultancy, now building a small business with my business partner with Boost Innovations, and obviously our sort of output and presentation sort of requirements are quite minimal. What I find as a design consultant, as a one-man band, is a tool that is sort of interactive to the extent where I can engage with my client and actually discuss sort of live design changes. But obviously it sounds like the functionality of your product is like massive. And like for somebody like me, I'm probably not going to touch the sides of actually what the software is capable of. So have you got any aspirations for a sort of condensed version or like a light version that perhaps has a pick up and put down monthly sort of subscription? Because again, that's also really beneficial sort of part for an agile small business like mine, to be able to, because I mean that's a tool that I would jump on, because I got myself an Oculus Quest, and you know that is a tool which I could literally say to one of my clients, you know, when we're running through these designs, because SolidWorks displays things in, you know, it's 3D, but I mean it's 2D, and sometimes we're dealing with contours and shapes which you need to get in there and look at it. So is there, like I say, is there any light version or scaled down version?
Yeah, absolutely, and there's certainly a time limited version as well. So you're not necessarily you don't have to take out 3 years worth of subscriptions in order to have it. You can, as you mentioned there, you could have it for a set period of time. Let's say 3 months. You knew you had a project that would require 3 months. We would offer on a 3-month basis as well. But there is a lockdown version depending on use case. So we do have a lockdown version that we call kiosk mode. If somebody didn't need to collaborate worldwide, they just wanted it to show designs maybe in person. So for events is ideal. We have a lockdown version, which is kiosk mode, which removes the video and audio conferencing ability, but keeps the ability to interact with the data, tear down the data, and see hotspots and metadata. But it's more locked down without the video and audio. So that's an option as well. So time limited and also kiosk mode that we call it.
Cool.
So can I jump in there, Neil? So can you take that kiosk mode even, and let's say share screen, Zoom, and interact with from a kiosk point of view? Instead, it's just using Zoom instead of your own independent or integrated. Yeah. Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah, exactly that. So you could utilize something like a Zoom. There'd be a lag because you weren't inside the application itself, but yeah, you could utilize something like a Zoom to show what you're doing inside the application.
Yeah, superb. Now, just before Tolu comes in, there's another question from Steve Scott. I don't know whether Sam was just going to jump in there as well. How much time is it needed to go from the CAD model to a presentation?
Ooh, it depends what you would like. Yes, yeah. It depends what you would like the presentation to look like. And I'll explain what I mean there. You could just read your CAD model in and just show your CAD model and use that in a meeting. And the time is very limited if you just wanted to show as designed CAD model to an audience. What the possible main benefit is using that CAD model in context. So adding metadata, adding hotspots, adding images. So obviously that is time consuming, and the more you put in, the more time you will utilize there. The other thing that might be time consuming, depending on your requirement, is if you wanted to render that data. So if you wanted that data to look like CAD, then you just put the CAD model in. If you wanted to render that data to make it look more like the material that you are designing, you could either render that in an application like VRED, which was mentioned earlier, or like KeyShot, which is another application that does a similar thing. Or you can pay a client, you can pay a consultancy like us or others to make the data look photoreal. So if you've got the CAD model and you wanted to show something that looked a bit more real, a bit more true to life, there would be a time taken making that data photoreal, either with yourselves with an application or utilizing a third-party company like us. But the time is limited dramatically if you just want to throw a CAD model in and show that CAD model, really.
Just off the back of that, I assume the actual kind of pinning the kind of metadata and the information that you've got on there and the presentation mode essentially is a simple kind of text box here, link that to there, type in and go kind of model.
Yeah, absolutely. But in truth, we've also got clients today who use this for a set period of time for a set function, and they actually don't even want the headache of doing that, so they just get us to do that up front effectively. So yeah, you can do the hotspots yourself, or you can just tell us where you want those hotspots and what text and images you want. If it's for set events, for example, if you want this for a show you're attending, you could say, I want it to look like this, here's my text, here's a document, throw it in and we'll deliver it in that form. So yeah, easy, or you can give the headache away altogether if you want.
Perfect. Tolu, did you want to add anything to this?
I mean, I'm really conscious of time, but the only question I had, because you all have asked the technical questions that could have come to mind, is just about the user experience, right? How easy is it for customers to get used to, like, to get conversations with the app, right? And do you provide like support along with people that subscribe or get the app?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So the application itself, in it, I turned it off for the purpose of the demonstration, but it has a little icon that talks you through every step. So when you are a new user and you load the application up, you can be talked through every step. And like if you were, I suppose it's like the old Microsoft safety pin. You have the ability of, or paperclip, sorry. You have the ability to, at any time, ask it, what does this bit do? So effectively clicking a question mark and clicking an icon tells you what that element does of the application itself. So the application hopefully holds your hand through it. But yeah, we absolutely offer support because it's a subscription model, predominantly a subscription model. Your subscription includes support. So you will have support throughout your subscription of the software itself.
Cool. And I would like to assume there are frequent updates to the application.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There are frequent updates to the application, and when you log on, effectively, you're informed there's an update available. So you're kind of warned. You can carry on using it, but if you want to, you can update it to the most recent version. So when you log on, you get a window that says "click here to update," effectively, but you can carry on using it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, we'll tie that one up there. Obviously, I've had a demo separately with Neil and his team, and obviously we integrated the AR side of it into it, and we had obviously the live meeting, and it I think we've kind of just scratched the surface almost on there today, and it is really impressive. So I'll ask everyone on the panel to comment on the LinkedIn live video, because this will stay available for anyone to watch back. So if you guys can comment on there, then everyone knows how to get in touch with you and connect with you and all of that sort of thing moving forward. So so we'll bring this one to an end. So thank you for everyone for engaging and commenting along as we go. And we will see you all next week, next Thursday morning for our next session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank
I
you.
will.